200,000 people took part Saturday, and that is nearly 4 times the number of people expected based on Facebook and Eventbrite RSVPs. Judkins Park reached its 60,000 person capacity by 9:30 a.m. Thousands of marchers had not left Judkins Park by the time the first marchers crossed into Seattle Center around 1 p.m.
Among all those people in Saturday's march, each one, of course, had a story.
One woman in particular struck a chord with a lot of our viewers, and thanks to social media, with a lot of people around the world. King 5's Alyssa Hahn caught up with her family today.
Mary Tenasset Lacey rolled down the street in her wheelchair in Olympia. We could tell right away she had a story to tell. Her sign showed her determination. 87-year-old, I will be heard.
I asked them, please let me live until this march, because it was so important to me, for me to model what I feel is right for my family.
She has terminal ovarian cancer, and we all want to be here not only to support women's rights and civil rights, but also to support her.
The retired teacher and mother of 9 didn't let a fatal cancer diagnosis stop her from being there on Saturday, and her family was equally determined to make it happen. Since our story aired all around the country and the world, social media has been sounding off about Mary.
This just feeds her soul. Just knowing that she made a difference and that people cared and that her message might inspire others. You know, as somebody who's facing death soon, what a wonderful way to know that your life mattered.
After all, isn't that what we all want? In Seattle, Alyssa Hahn, King 5 News.
Joining us now, King County Council member Jeannie Cole Wells. We have a history of taking part in these kinds of demonstrations. What message do you think was sent on Saturday?
I think a lot of messages were set. One of them was to put Congress and our new president on warning that there are people all over the country, men and women. It wasn't just a women's march. I saw about half were men and children. But we're putting them on notice that, hey, you take away our health care, you take away the right to visit doctors and get care for your needs and the affordability for it, but you also defund Planned Parenthood. At the march, when something came up about Planned Parenthood, there were the loudest boos and jeers, of any. And also to get involved. I mean, we're not going to sit back. I anticipate that people all over the country, in fact, all over the world, it appears, are going to stay engaged, but we have to make sure that happens.
Right, it feels like now there's this momentum, but where does it go?
So there's a lot of talk about that. At Judkins Park on Saturday and at the Seattle Center, there was a real plan and effort to pair people up with organizations in the community, whether it's the Women's Political Caucus or whatever. To get involved, but there were too many people. They couldn't handle the enormous crowds. We'd expected about 30,000 initially. It went up to 50,000, and now it looks like almost 200,000 just here. So, got to get people involved. The Women's March organization nationally has put out the word that we should have 10 days in the next 100 days where major efforts are made. So people should check that website.
So you're encouraging people to pick a topic or an issue that is dear to them.
That's right.
And focus on that and work on that.
That's right. And that's been done historically too. I'm very involved, in fact, helped found Win with Women here in Washington State to get progressive women elected to the state legislature. We raise funds to do that. That's very important. Other people are very involved, people in groups with different purposes to get Asian Americans involved in the electorate process. But whatever it is, if you care about child care, actually, if you care about climate change, I mean, there are all sorts of issues that were represented there to get involved. Don't wait. Now, we have the mid-year elections coming up in 2018, and you may remember what the Tea Party did 7 years ago. And we cannot leave this to marching in big cities. We have to also attract people, and they're being able to get involved in the smaller cities.
And in the rural areas.
In the rural areas, which is what the Tea Party did. And that's where you can really gain traction and get more people engaged.
So much of it, though, depends on tapping the knowledge base that people like you represent. I mean, how can people connect with people who already know how to run a political campaign and get involved in politics on
Well,
whatever level?
If that's what the people who are interested care about, then there are the Women's Political Caucus of Washington State. I mentioned Win with Women. There's a new FEMPAC, Young Women Political Action Committee. So I encourage people to get involved with that. And we've got a new group called Emerge, which is raising money to train women to run for office. That's critical.
That's very critical, right? I would
It
think.
really is. And that costs money. And you can't wait till the election year and all the campaigns. You've got to be building the momentum now. And I predict that's going to happen all over. Also get involved with your local political organizations. The King County Democrats just reorganized. There'll be a state party chair elected. I assume the Republicans are doing that as well. And get involved with your local legislative district Democrats, I would say, and find out what you can do. But the main thing is to get involved. It's happened historically. When we had the right to vote achieved by women in 1920, I was not around then, but my mother was, and she was very, very just a child. But we had people fight for that. But in 1913, the suffragettes held an enormous march in Washington, D.C., and it was the day before Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. The timing is interesting.
Right, very interesting.
And they brought about, eventually in 1920, women's right to vote.
So you think this is not just a little flash in the pan, that this is something significant and it is a movement?
It absolutely is a movement. I'm a sociologist, and what I would say is this is an important step in bringing about social change. Now, the unfortunate part is the social change we have to work on is to defend what we've had and make sure that's not taken away. And I'm afraid that's going to be a major part of it. But that we'll also be proactive to bring about new rights. And
Jean Cole Wells,
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
As we head to break, a memorable moment from the Women's March in D.C. on Saturday. A singer based in Los Angeles contacted other women around the country to perform a song about unity.
They sang a cappella several times during the march, and before that day, they'd only practiced the song or spoken to each other online. So take a listen as we head to break.
If I don't say something, if I just